thought were right, but now we're questioning that. And then there's a later transition where you start being more constructive and imagining what could be different. How could we do things differently? And then maybe a new paradigm emerges. But if we're wise, we'll probably keep in mind that before too long, what will happen with that new paradigm? There'll be people who start saying, there's got to be a better way to do it than this. And that seems to be the way things move ahead. So we'd like to talk about what to do with what you've heard today. And the first thing I'd like to suggest is this. Let's believe in the God revealed by Jesus Christ. I know that's a radical idea. I know that might sound shocking. But let's actually believe in the God that Jesus told us about. One of our problems that we're struggling with, in fact, some denominations today are really struggling with this, is to say this. Do we take the rest of the Bible and then try to fit Jesus into the theology that we derive from the rest of the Bible, or do we start with Jesus and say Jesus becomes our window into understanding the rest of the Bible? Now you might say there's really no conflict or there's really no difference. Well, let me just say that the different ways you answer that question seem to yield two very different approaches to the faith. And let me suggest to you that if we're going to call ourselves Christians, we start with Jesus. Go back to that. And we understand that to believe in the God revealed by Jesus is affirming that God's the creator of everything and loves all of creation. I mean, Jesus made this clear when he talked about God loving the wildflowers and God loving the sparrows. If he loves wildflowers, if he loves sparrows, if he loves, these simple creatures. It starts there. He really cares about all creatures. He cares about all people. He demonstrated this by making it clear he cared about prostitutes. He cared about tax collectors. He cared about everybody. The people that others said were just outsiders and were on the, were the bad guys. He cared about them. And so if we start with Jesus, we've got to start by believing that God loves people and that the essential disposition of God toward creation, all of creation, is love. And so when God looks at Bess and Jim, who were with us a few minutes ago, to believe that we start like Jesus Christ means that God starts by saying, those are my kids, I love them. I remember when I met a Christian leader a couple of years ago who was very well respected in my city. And his son, who was about my age, mid to late 20s at that time, had rejected the Christian faith and was kind of well known and notorious as a phenomenally gifted pianist who played in bars. And I knew about his son before I met the father. And when I met the father, I remember saying, I've heard about your son's musical talent. And his father went on for about 5 minutes talking about how proud he was of his son. And I was always waiting for the but. But, he's not following Christ. Or, but he's playing in bars. He shouldn't be in bars. I kept waiting for the but, and there was no but. He just told me how proud he was of his son. And I learned something from his omission. That we could see, this is what the story of the prodigal son, where the word lost originally comes from. In fact, there's so many things about that story that are so interesting. But one of them is the father loves the younger son, and the father loves the older son. And in a bizarre way, the younger son is lost at the beginning of the story. The older son is lost at the end of the story. But we start by believing that this is the way God really is. If we go back to the slide, please. Please go back, the first one. I won't be done with this for a while. And that God actually cares for everybody. This is another thing that Jesus reveals to us about God. He cares for Gentiles. He cares for Roman centurions. He cares for Syrophoenician women. He cares for Samaritans. He cares, eventually, makes it clear, for the whole world. Now, this is one of our struggles. For the Jewish people, they knew this. God loves the whole world. The calling of Abraham was not, Abraham, I will bless you and curse the rest of the world. It was, I will bless you, and you will be a blessing to the rest of the world. I'll make you a blessing. I care about the whole world. I'm blessing you for the benefit of the whole world. So all the nations of the world will be blessed through you. See, God choosing the Jewish people doesn't mean that he hates everybody else. It means that the way he'll bring blessing to everybody else is through the people who he's chosen. And this is a struggle for us, that God cares, but that by God choosing some of us and allowing us to be followers of Jesus in this sense, by inviting us to be followers of Jesus, he's not doing it so that we're his favorites and he doesn't care about everybody else. And the best way for me to understand this goes back to an old tradition. I don't know if it's practiced anymore in Pennsylvania. Do safety patrols exist in Pennsylvania anymore? Do they still exist? Yes? Okay. Well, when I was in 5th grade, I yearned to be a safety patrol. How many of you had safety patrols in your schools? You know what I'm talking about? Okay. And safety patrols are for the kids who walk to school. 5th and 6th graders would be invited to be safety patrols. And the coolest thing was you got this belt. Now, the old ones were white, and then they came out with fluorescent orange ones, but you wore this belt, and it had a badge on it, which was so cool, You could be in 5th grade and wear a badge. I mean, this is cool. And what was really cool is that the people who had these belts learned how to fold them. And you'd roll them up in a certain way, so that it was all rolled up. The badge was on the top. And I just thought this was the neatest thing. And then the other thing about the safety patrols was that they got to have a day off of school in June and go to a big amusement park together. So I heard about this. Safety patrols got a cool belt. They got to go away to a place in June and miss school for a day. And third thing was they always left about 15 minutes before lunch and before the end of school. So this sounded like the job that you want to get. And I coveted it. I desired it. I hoped I would get it, and I got it. At the end of my 4th grade year, my teacher said, "I've nominated you to be a safety patrol next year." And I just remember being filled with joy. I was one of the chosen. I was chosen by my teacher to be a safety patrol. Now, when 5th grade started, here's what I learned. You have to get up about 20 minutes earlier than other people. You have to stand outside in cold wind, freezing rain. You have to stand outside in all the elements. You have to go like this, all the time. And you have to be mocked by some of the other kids who think you're stupid for being a safety patrol. And you have to make up the work that you missed in the last 15 minutes before lunch and the end of school. And it was nice. It was nice to go on that day to the amusement park at the end. But later I realized why the other patrols made such a big deal about it. Because you had to find some reward for all the sacrifice and hard work. See? So what I realized in the long run, that being chosen to be a safety patrol was being chosen for responsibility, not for privilege. And you'd only really stick with it if you really like the idea of serving people. And this is what's, I think, so dangerously wrong about what we call evangelism, that says, "Hey, buddy, got some information for you about how to go to heaven. It's fast, easy, and convenient. You don't have to do anything. Just have to say a prayer. Want in on this deal?" And it's all about you, and it's all about your pleasure, and it's all about privilege. It's like going up to somebody and saying, "You want to get a free trip to an amusement park and miss a day of school?" See? And not explain what the whole story is about, to be a follower of Christ. So this God that Jesus told us about loves, creates, cares about all creation, connects with people's lives, and stays, doesn't abandon people, keeps coming back when people reject. And even if you kill God and say, "I want nothing to do with you," you can't get rid of him. See, this is the God that Jesus reveals to us. And let's start by believing in this God. Secondly, let's take what Jesus said seriously about loving our neighbors. I just think that 97% of our problems as Christians would be solved if we got back to loving God as Jesus told us. And understanding God to really be the person Jesus told us, to actually believe that Jesus was right about God, that God spoke to us through the prophets, all the prophets told us was true, but in the last days, God revealed himself through Jesus, who gave so much more than the prophets. Moses gave law, Jesus gave grace and truth. The prophets gave us something, true and wonderful. Jesus gave us the radiance of God's glory. The prophets gave us messages from God. Jesus gave us God in the flesh.